Hello, it is a pleasure being here today at a Vancouver Nerd Night. Today I would like to talk about how will our children learn science in 2050. I am Dr. Marina Milner-Bolotin, a professor of science education, and my area of research is science education and the use of technology in science teaching. Thus, this topic is very relevant and interesting for me. I hope it will be relevant and interesting for you as well. And to start with the relevance, I wanted to mention very interesting recent data by the Canadian, one of the big statistical polls, that claims that currently Canadians, most of us, will change our careers at least twice during our lifetime. Please notice that I'm talking about career change, not a job change. And in this graph on your right chart, you can see that about 24% of us, a quarter, will hold one career during our lifetime, while more than a third will switch careers twice. About a quarter will have 3 careers, and the rest of us will have 4 or more careers. While there are many different reasons for career change, such as different passions, interests, some people become disillusioned in their original career choice, or layoffs, we all have to admit that new careers will demand different skills from us. And one of the skills that I argue will be very important in 2050, even much earlier, will be analytical skills that you can develop while studying mathematics and science. Thus, I would like to change my title of my presentation to How Will We Learn Science in 2050, as most of us will need to learn new skills in order to succeed in the future. And it brings me to a cartoon that you can see here. And I think it is very relevant for us that whatever you want to do, technical skills will be needed. Therefore, the topic of my presentation today can be narrowed down from our children far away in the future to us. How will we be learning science in the future? And by learning science, I'm not talking about learning science in the classroom, but learning science and mathematics and technical skills during our entire lifespan. And this brings me to technology. Technology has penetrated our lives in Vancouver, Canada, or anywhere else, and we cannot now imagine life without technology. Could you please raise your hand if you brought some device with you today, maybe a cell phone, a smartphone, a laptop, or anything else? Most of us. And this tells me that a lot of us rely on technology on a daily basis. Yet the question is, how come, while technology has so much penetrated in our lives, is so ubiquitous, how come there has been no revolution in how we learn science and teach science? You might tell that some changes have been happening in some classrooms, or some children learn science in a different way, but on a large scale we can claim that there has been no revolution that changed how we learn science today from how our parents, probably grandparents, learned science. I have to tell you that here some people might say, listen, but we have unlimited access to information. Past generation have not had it. So how come you claiming that there has been no change? What I am trying to emphasize here is that information access is not equal to knowledge. The fact that you can Google something up, and there's a very good website here, it's called Let Me Google That For You, it does not mean that this information becomes yours. And I want to distinguish those two ideas. Thus, I want to ask us, are modern students engaged in science, not Googling it up, engaged with science deeper than we were? So I can paraphrase it by moving from the abacus, maybe the second device. Do you know what it is? You're right, it's a slide rule. To a calculator or to a computer. Are we better engaged with science? And the recent report by the Let's Talk Science organization says that it might not be clear that it has positively affected how we learn science. Interestingly, the report says that less than 50% of secondary graduates in Ontario complete grade 11 and 12 math and science. It had been done in Ontario, so we can extrapolate to other provinces, but the point is that less than 50% of people who are grade 12 students have enough credentials to continue studying many fields, not just technical fields, but a lot of other fields that require mathematics and science education. So science students, our students today are disengaged. This disengagement has very important implications, both financial implications, political, societal implications. But if we do not engage the students of today in science, what can we say about us in the future? I think it's one of the issues that Canadians will need to address. How do we engage students with science differently? And one of the reasons it's so important for us is that Canada, if we don't want to rely on oil all the time, and now as the oil prices have plummeted, you realize how important it is to us to diversify our economy, that the selling of natural resources is not the only venue for revenue for our country. This is very important. And without having people who are engaged meaningfully in science, we're not going to achieve it. We will have very bad consequences for our country. This brings me to the recent YouTube I've watched by Derek Miller. Have you heard about Veritasium here? Okay, I hope a lot of you have heard of it or will go and Google it up. Veritasium is the channel created by a science educator, Derek Miller, who is very interested in the effects of technology and learning. And he's asking a question: how will technology revolutionize education? And he makes fun of the claim that every new technology that comes up claimed to revolutionize education, but it hasn't happened. As he is very big on YouTube, Derek Miller claims that the combination of different technologies, YouTube and other media, will eventually make a significant impact, if not a revolution in education. But I want to ask a bigger question: is technology enough to revolutionize education? Can it be that we're just focusing so narrowly on technology that we don't realize that we have a huge elephant in the room that we are not noticing? Let's go back for a moment. You've all been to multiple technology enhanced presentations where you have to listen to a boring PowerPoint, and it is boring. It's lots of technologies, lots of links, things are moving on the screen, and you're absolutely disengaged. I hope I'm not the case here, but I want to tell you that technology makes teaching much harder. As a teacher who teaches both large and small classes, I have to say, when I do use technology and when I'm trying to engage my students, just having technology does not make my work easier. It makes me harder. It harder because I have to think, how can I utilize those opportunities? And this brings me to the professional development for teachers in British Columbia. If we realize that without solid knowledge of how to engage students with technology, we're not going to move forward. How come in British Columbia we do not spend enough time to give teachers opportunities to learn new technologies? For example, you all have heard about the strike, and many of us have been affected by the teachers' strike. But one of the issues that had not been discussed enough is that BC teachers have only 5 days a year that are deemed non-instructional and used for professional development. Think about it. For the whole academic year, you have 5 days where you have a chance to work with other people to learn new technologies. How can we expect teachers to become experts in engaging students with technologies? And this is my main claim for today's presentation. What limits modern science education and what will limit the future science education is not the lack of technology, but the lack of educators who are prepared and willing to use it in new ways to engage students in math and science. And for the rest of my presentation, I would like to show you a few examples how technology can be used differently to engage students. And I want to focus on 4 aspects of teaching: content, context, collaboration, and personalized learning. I believe that all 4 aspects will be crucial if we want to engage students differently in math and science in the future. And in all 4 of those aspects, technology can play a very important role. Let me start with the content. A lot of science concepts and mathematics concepts, for that matter, are very abstract. When you think of an abstract concept, for example, the solar system, or the gravitational field, or the orbits of the planets, all those abstract concepts are not easy to demonstrate in class. The scales are huge. Also, whenever we have a demonstration, we make some assumptions, we build a model. The question, how can I help the students understand this concept, this content, and also be able to behave like a scientist, to be able to play with it. Play means to change variable, to ask what-if questions. And I claim here that technology in the hands of knowledgeable teachers can play a very important role here. For example, I'm showing you here the PhET simulation by the team at the University of Colorado, who created those simulations that help knowledgeable teachers engage students in a meaningful way in learning. Another way technology can help us is how can we make science closer to students' lives. It is surprising how much we rely on technology and how often people say, science has nothing to do with me. I am not a sciencey person. So let's think of it. A lot of us have our smartphones in our pockets, and there are endless number of apps. There are science apps that can help us bring science closer to our life. For example, those apps here show you how you can detect stars. Maybe a lot of you have those apps on your computer. Maybe you can have an app can measure track the sun, or track planets. Maybe you have an app that will help you measure the noise level in the room, or acceleration of gravity, or other things. But those things can help the kids to do science not just in class but outside of class. And when you do that, you can discover a lot of exciting things. But who do you share them with? And what if you discover something that the teacher cannot help you with because the teachers cannot know all science? And here it brings me to the next level of how technology will revolutionize, I believe, our science learning is collaboration. Today, the students are not limited by the classroom, and the teachers cannot be expected to know everything the students might ask them. Today, the students have an opportunity to participate in online communities all over the world. They can participate in MOOCs, which is massive open online courses. I participate in one now on natural disasters, and you can see on the right the map that shows where the people who are members of my class are from. I have to say that you have to be very motivated to participate, and the attrition of those courses is huge. But for people who are interested, it's a fantastic opportunity to be enrolled in the best universities in the world, and to get the knowledge that it would have been hard to get earlier. But those courses are massive. You have collaboration, you can link to the experts, but the question is, this is something that is very important, but as we know, it takes real people to raise a child, and it takes real people to inspire us. And it brings me to the project of Digital Aristotle for Everyone. And the question is, how do we personalize learning? I'm going from this huge MOOC to a child in the classroom who wants to learn on an individual basis. And here, the biggest argument that I want to finish my presentation with is that technology will help us personalize education. We will have tools to learn where the student is and how we can help the student. But in no ways this digital Aristotle or Socrates, if you wish, will be replacing a teacher. I want to finish with one important caveat. Today, we are confusing very often the content creators, people who upload things on the internet, and we're grateful to them, with teachers. Teaching is much more than just uploading content on the web. The students need people in their lives who will listen to them, who will inspire them, and who will physically be there to talk to them about science or other issues. Therefore, my big conclusion for today's presentation is that if we have to change how we educate our students, we have to start with educating science teachers. Technology is not the answer to our problems. If we want a different kind of education in 2050, we have to have teachers who can embrace technology and who are knowledgeable enough to create the learning environments where everybody, students and adults, will be able to learn science and enjoy it. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. And I put a nerdy joke to finish a Nerd Night Vancouver presentation. Thank you for your attention.